Hey guys, in this video we're going to show you how to find, harvest, and cook Fib Kings, otherwise known as Boletes fibrillosus. We found our first Fib King. Just like the Boletes edulis, they have the reticulation. Then get some cross sections with the stems. So we're here in Western Washington. It's mid-fall, late October. We've been getting some solid rain for about the last month and a half. We're at low elevation in a mixed conifer forest with some deciduous trees as well. The undergrowth is a lot of sword ferns, elderberries, salmon berries. So as you're walking down the trail, be on the lookout for hand-sized, dark, like chocolate buns, basically is how I would describe them. They've got a super matte cap, unless they're wet, in which case it'll be shiny. And they're, about 5 inches from the ground. They grow straight out of the soil. They're saprotrophic, so they're feeding on the dead plant litter. All right, we found our first Fib King, and I think I spot another one right over there. And so the first distinguishing feature between a Fib King and the true King Boletes edulis is the much darker cap of the Fib Kings. In addition to that, they generally have a much thinner stipe. It doesn't immediately bulge out under the cap. Just like the Boletes edulis, they have the reticulation, the sort of spider webbing on the upper part of the stipe. They're obviously pored, just like all other boletes. The pored undersurface, so unlike gills, which look sort of more like folds in an accordion, the pores look like a sponge. So tiny, tiny holes in the bottom of a otherwise solid surface. As long as they're not wet, they're dry to the touch. These ones are wet. It's raining really hard. We're back home in the kitchen, and normally we would clean off all the dirt out in the forest so that it doesn't get in the bag for transporting, but it was super rainy, so it didn't. So we're just gonna cut off all of the dirty part of the stem while leaving as much of the good inside meat as we can. Once all of the dirty parts are cut off, we need to use a spoon to take out all of the spores from the inside of the cap, because they'll turn to kind of a slimy mush in the pan. I like to use a spoon and just kind of scoop up underneath the pores. Once you get under the pores, you'll be able to see how much worm damage there is in the cap, and depending on your level of comfort with eating small bites of worm protein, you can either just eat them as is, or we like to dehydrate ones that have gotten pretty wormy. And that way, once they're fully dehydrated, you can grind them into a powder. And then it really doesn't matter if there were worms in there. Cooking will kill the worms. So there's no drawbacks other than psychological ones. All right, so now we're gonna cut up the mushroom. I'm gonna do pretty thick medallions of the stem. If you're seeing that the stem is really mealy and full of holes, maybe you choose not to eat it, or you can dehydrate that part. Once the stem gets pretty short, I like to do cross sections of the mushroom and get some cross sections with the stem, because it just looks cool. Got our mushroom all cut up, we're ready to move on to frying. So we've got 2 cloves of garlic, good handful of our mushrooms, and as much butter as you want to use. but we're gonna start by dry frying the mushrooms to get excess moisture out before we add the fat. If we add the fat now, it'll kind of just all turn into a watery butter soup that will leave the mushrooms kind of rubbery. And then we'll add our butter, and then we'll add our garlic at the end so it doesn't burn. Delicious. So for our mushrooms that were a little too wormy to be cooked and enjoyed that way, we're going to dehydrate them, and we just have one of the stacking rack dehydrators. So you can cut your mushrooms however thick you'd like, put them all on the tray, and then we like to put our dehydrator just at the highest temp, and then usually takes about 12 to 15 hours, depending on how thick you cut your mushrooms and what dehydrator you have. And then once they're dehydrated, you can powder them or store them dried in chunks to add to soup later on, whatever you like. Our dehydrated Fib Kings are ready to go. As you can see, they've shrunk a lot, and you'll know that they're done when you can take one and grind it to powder in a mortar and pestle. Powder is great for sprinkling on literally anything that you want to have a nice rich mushroomy flavor. You can also pop them in a mason jar and save them for any time you want to make a soup or a sauce or anything that'll put liquid back into it. Thanks for watching, everybody, and thanks for coming along and seeing what I found in the forest. And we'll see you next time.